This One-Up podcast is brought to you by Games for Windows. Welcome to Better PC Gaming. Created with the idea that gaming should deliver more. Games for Windows branded titles bring you all the fun of gaming without all the work. And with the hottest titles around and Windows Vista compatibility, Games for Windows promises to deliver great new gaming experiences every time you play.
Hello? Hello? Attention, if you can hear this, please do not turn this off. My name is Dr. Norbert Jeske. I'm a scientist. I am recording this from the year 2152, and we have made a very important discovery. We've discovered a tape here. It's labeled GFW Radio June 12th, 2007, and we believe that it holds the key to fixing everything that's gone wrong in the world for the last 100 years. It was on this day, on June 12th in 2007, that everything went wrong. That's when the monsters came. It's when the dinosaurs came back. It's when everything terrible that's happened hit everybody's skin. And so this is what we're doing. This is our desperate attempt. What we're planning on doing, my robot friend and I, is we're going to take this tape. We're going to use the time machine that we've built. And we're going to go back. We're going to go back and post this in hopes that once it's up and people can hear this podcast now that they couldn't before, that it will fix everything. We want things to be the way they were before. We want our skin back. So please, if you're listening to this in 2007, please, it's going to sound odd. It sounds like somehow this was in the middle of a podcast. The whole thing isn't here anymore. We don't know what happened now. It's 100 years later. But just listen to what's here now. And maybe if you listen to this small excerpt of this lost podcast, the world can once again be the way it was meant to be. Please, for God's sakes, listen to this outtake. Good luck and Godspeed to you all. May humanity live on.
So after an equipment malfunction, we don't know where we're at. We're going to back this shit up a little bit.
All right.
We're going to jack it up.
We had technical difficulties, sir. New laptop, everyone.
Let's just go on. We'll move on to another question.
All right.
Okay, this is a good one, I think. Iscariot83 asked, to what extent do we think that RPG gameplay elements, gaining levels, increasing stats and abilities, and upgrading equipment are a fundamental part of the massive multiplayer experience? It's hard to imagine an MMO where people don't have some sort of increasing abilities throughout the game, but at the same time, people have been enjoying Counter-Strike and Halo for years, and nobody's found an epic shotgun or leveled up their hit points. So once broadband technology is enough to handle it, do you think that pure action gameplay will translate into a persistent, unified online world, or are action MMOs going to always rely on instant combat and stat tracking? Or do people fundamentally need some sort of levels that justifies the time they put into the game? In short, are MMOs fundamentally tied to RPG gameplay elements? I would, like, the first thing that comes to mind for me, maybe to get started, is that I don't think it's so much, well, especially now as we're seeing, games like, or we're hearing about, games like Huxley and The Crossing, and just basically all, even PlantSide, all these new versions of massive multiplayer environments and stuff. It's not so much the technology, the bandwidth, as the design of MMOs as they are now reflects just the time, the man hours that people are able and willing to put into designing gameplay for it, right? And the best way to keep people playing or to create a ton of content is to create basically leveling. Just the same content, change the colors on it, add some new items, and basically change the names by saying you're a different level now, and by saying that the Scarizard is now a red Scarizard or whatever.
Yeah, levels and stats are a way to tell you where you're supposed to be currently in the game universe. So if you got this vast giant world, allegedly, then if you're level 12, you're allowed to be in this chunk of the vast giant world right now.
Right. And if instead of saying, well, we're going to spend 100,000 hours making a game that you could play for 1,000 hours, they're still going to spend however many hours they did, but find a way to make it so that what they made is going to last you. I mean, it's different. I'm not saying they make the same game, but I fundamentally, this is just basic. I don't think it's controversial. The way MMOs are designed now reflects the need to keep people playing and have a bunch of content, and you can't do that by being a specialist. You have to be a generalist and just say, we could take different backgrounds and stuff, but this fundamental experience of going up and clicking on things has got to work the way it is. You're not going to have the variety of what you'd experience over the course of Half-Life 2 every time you play this game, day in and day out for the course of a year, so that you've got 1,000 hours, each as unique as every hour in Half-Life 2,
I just think there's always going to be both kinds of games, because really they just can appeal to not just different gamers, but people who maybe like both but want to play a different kind of game at a different time. I don't think. They're part of the reason that there haven't been good action-based MMOs has been technology and bandwidth and everything. But even if you make all that equal, I think you're still going to get people who would still rather just prefer a level grind over shoot 'em up, right?
Or if rather than a shoot 'em up, like say, what if the combat were, even as engaging as Devil May Cry, or take it down a notch from that and say is like God of War or something. That I think maybe that's even too demanding for some people who really want to just be in there and because you're not going to be having an elaborate talk with your guildmates and stuff if you're like worrying about hitting the right combos at the right time, precisely the right time. And I know that need exists in high level play and in raiding and stuff like that in World of Warcraft specifically. But for most instances, pre-raiding stuff, it sounds like you can just go in and we could talk about what we want on the best pizza in the world, and still kill like whatever Red Scarzard's coming out of.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe thing to say. That if you're playing with more than one person in WoW, like it's a super easy game. Like, because most of the game is tuned for one person to handle. So if you got two people doing the same stuff, then it's really no big deal.
Yeah, right. More questions? Ryan, do you want to?
Yeah, read some, Ryan.
I'm looking. I can't decide.
Pick one.
Hard.
Throw a dart.
Here's one right here. Smythe.
See, you snoozed and losed.
Damn it.
Says there are at least 3 games being made into movies for release this fall: Dungeon Siege, Hitman, and Postal. But there's one game with a story that practically cries out to be filmed.
Zelda?
Half-Life.
Oh.
Is there or has there been any talk about making a Half-Life movie? Also, if you're going to cast the major roles in the film, who would you cast? So the last I heard from Gabe Newell at Valve was that, of course, they had been approached by, from multiple angles about making a Half-Life movie. But obviously they're very, very picky with their baby and what happens to it, and nothing has impressed them in the least bit there. So as of that talk a year ago, there was definitely nothing in the works, although they have those discussions. Clearly, I mean, you have a property like that, you're going to be having those discussions.
Yeah. Well, 2 of those games on your list for a UE Bowl production.
Right. So they hardly count.
Aren't all 3 of them? Who's done Hitman?
Oh, maybe is he doing Hitman?
I don't think Hitman is.
Why would you want to see a movie of any of these, including Half-Life? I wouldn't even want to see a Half-Life movie. It'd be
I'm
like
a nerd. I kind of would.
It'd be like Doom. I mean, like the thrill of
there's
Half-Life.
A lot more to Half-Life. There's a lot more.
Okay, you're right. That's not a fair comparison, because Half-Life did have a great story and does have a great story, and it has a cool universe. But we've experienced it already in the game as Gordon Freeman.
It's all about the extended experience now, Jeff. And if you're not reading the Heroes comic strips, you're not.
Okay, so let's cast Gordon Freeman then.
Yeah.
Jack Black.
Ryan Scott.
He just ruined it.
Ryan Scott.
Oh,
Ryan Scott as Gordon
you
Freeman.
You just ruined it. Yeah, Jack Black. Get out of here with that shit, dude.
I was kidding you.
What would be what game would he be a good fit for?
Jack Black?
Booger Man.
Hey, Jack Black's a gamer.
So he should be in all video game movies.
Yeah, because he knows. He'd understand. No, who would? They asked us a question. Who should play Gordon Freeman?
I don't
Come on,
really
we're the ultimate gaming authority.
Because I generally don't spend my time thinking about, wouldn't it be wonderful?
Edward Norton.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, that would work. Pretty good.
There you go.
This guy I used to work with would have been perfect.
Oh, great.
Oh, Dan Fitzpatrick. Is that who you meant?
No.
Some of them are already cast. Like
he's an art director over at Future. He looks
Morgan Freeman for Eli Vance,
Freeman.
Yeah. And
oh, yeah, sure.
What else?
How about
What about
the
Alex?
chick?
Yeah.
Alex.
Mm.
Michelle Rodriguez.
What?
just
Oh
ruined it
God,
again.
that would be bad. Jeff, you're like, let's. Well,
why-
Jeff, just keep going. Actually,
Okay.
give us your all-star cast.
All right,
We got
here we got Jack Black as Gordon Freeman.
Yeah.
Michelle Rodriguez is Alex.
Yeah.
And what's her dad's name? What's his name?
We got. Well, go for Barney.
He's the one you said was.
well, yeah, that's.
Yeah, but that's in your cast. In mine, it's. Wait, you said.
No, I didn't say. I said you got to cast Barney. I didn't cast Barney yet.
Well, no, but you casted Morgan Freeman as what's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in my version, the part played by Morgan Freeman
Mhm.
is played by the guy who played Raymond and Everybody Loves Raymond's brother, that big dude. Okay, I didn't
Come
even.
on, take this somewhere quick, man. You're
Okay,
on the hot seat.
all right. I'm in the hot seat. So Barney,
Yeah.
Barney is what's his name? Conan O'Brien's ex-sidekick, Andy Rickman. Andy Richter, not Richter.
I don't
Andy
know
Richter.
who any of these people are.
Shit. All right, let's move on.
This sounds like a winner.
This is why I'm not a casting
Predicting the
director.
box office right now.
Okay.
I was kidding about all those, by the way.
Here's,
you were.
Don't lie.
what criteria? This is from Atomic Satchel. What criteria is used when sending a staff member to check out a game? Would you rather send a hardcore fan of the genre, or someone completely new or neutral? I'm thinking there are benefits and downsides either way. Someone really into the games of a specific type might get caught up in the hype. On the other hand, a newcomer to the genre might not appreciate or understand what the developers are trying to do. I guess it could be that none of this matters and you send whoever has the availability to go.
I think he just answered the
I
question.
think he answered his own question all the way throughout that.
No.
Very perceptive question, though. Very.
Nobody looked at the that is always
We deal with that
those
all the
are
time
the
here.
stakes. You know,
That's
what I mean?
part of what we deal here every day.
If someone is too far into something, there is that danger that they're, you know, I mean, in cases, I guess ideally in cases like that, now and then we will work together on stories, you know.
Yeah.
When you have different perspectives and stuff. But it is, yeah, it's give and take. Like you said, if you send me cover, or like to take it away from me, if you send either you, Jeff, or Sean Molloy to cover World of Warcraft, you're getting the perspective of people that know the game very well and are going to be asking a different set of questions. They're going to be asking, I think, the sorts of questions that other people that are really into the game and other people that are going to buy the magazine based on that cover story are going to want to have asked.
Right.
At the same time, though, and it does work the other way where, you know, like Sean, you had this experience recently writing about Team Fortress 2, where you do go and you end up writing about it and you're asking an entirely different set of questions. And like, you know, when you came back from your visit, I was asking all this stuff. Well, what about this and this? And you're like,
Right, it's all really
"No,
specific.
I wasn't
Like,
even really paying attention to that. But then, you were able to offer a completely valuable perspective for everyone else that's not me, who isn't sitting there doing, you know, like old conch map jumps and stuff, waiting and thinking about what it's going to be like to play this game again, you know, and both are valid. They obviously want both. I mean,
Yep.
the answer for who the game maker wants as his audience is always anyone
everybody.
that they can get, you
Yep.
know.
Right, it's not just
I
the
think
people
it's
who played
safe
in
to
the
say
past,
that we approach this question no matter what the article is, whether it's a preview or a review or whatever.
Right.
We're thinking about that a lot. You know, these decisions are never made lightly.
And there's the editorial process, which is always important. You know, I mean, if ever there's the case and someone comes back, you know, like now, rather than the cover story thing, I'll say, you know, if I'm editing a preview or any other story, and if something seems too uniformly glowing or positive, it's not like, hey, go and make this like negative, but it's like, are you considering these? You know, are you like considering these options and stuff? And we always go back and ask follow up questions or something, or someone, or just it could come from anyone. Someone might
That's
just have
right.
another great question, and through the edit process, it goes back for another round, and you have that, and it adds, you know, that perspective ends up, even though it's still in the voice of the one writer who wrote it, you know, it's introduced into it that way. But never any. I've been feel fortunate here. I mean, because of our sort of, you know, our ethic here and the way that we do things, and we have, you know, we have meetings and stuff, and through email we talk about, you know, and lunches and stuff. This is how. These are our expectations. We don't want to see this kind of thing. We think that this defines us. You know, these other practices we just don't want to have here. And so we just don't see that kind of thing where someone is entirely. I don't think we've had that where someone's entirely blinded by something and their appreciation for it to the extent that they're coming back a year away or a year or two away from release and saying that something is a potential game of the year contender, you know.
Well, I think when these things do crop up, and I agree with you, I don't think we're that bad, but I think when they do crop up in articles as we're going through the editing process, somebody else here on staff will call them on it.
Yeah, and there's cases where, there are stories that by the time they do go to readers, they've gone through, 4 or 5 passes and entire rewrites at times, where we say, like, we really think that we could be a little more critical. That by critical, we don't mean just being negative, but by again, at the very bare minimum, you have to ask the questions that you think, with the degree of healthy and normal skepticism any non-dupe is going to have. Mm-hmm. And if you ever have someone reading your book and they're asking questions like, why the hell didn't they ask them this? It seems so obvious. Like, then you've kind of fucked up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to
All right,
other,
we'll move
before
on.
we dwell on that too long. We'll go on to some other. We have GFW Radio Crew. This is Tempest 261. Serious question. Can you guys please stop mumbling? I always hear the first half of your sentence. The second half. Sean Molloy and Jeff are the worst offenders.
We are?
Sean Elliott is fine. Listen to the podcast while driving if you don't believe me, combined with a little noise. All right, whatever.
So
we got another letter.
So they say we mumble.
right.
when
I'm
we
a
finish
mumbler.
talking?
I was trying to make
I will talk
joke.
like this from now on.
That was a real letter, and I wanted to just
I didn't
keep
realize
going. But
it.
since it said your name, it indicted you, you've got to stand up to it.
Okay,
All right.
well, I don't mumble, and if you think so, fuck you.
Here's one. I think we can cover this quickly, but it's worth reading his question because he makes his own point, and I think it's a good one. LMN8R, the Eliminator. Do you think people vastly exaggerate the cost of PC gaming? In my opinion, they do. Look at a 360 and say $400 console, turn around and say $2,000 PC, completely ignoring one, the fact that TVs aren't free, and it's especially, of course, high definition and stuff, 2, PCs are used for much more than just games. 3, upgrading a non-gaming PC to one capable of gaming usually only requires the addition of a $200 to $300 video card. And, of course, that depends on what you're working with there. If you guys want to chime in, I just say, yeah, that's a point I make constantly, you know, especially
definitely.
now that we've made the HD jump, and like I go over to you go over to Shoes House or Mark McDonald's or something, I've got these Mongo HD TVs. In the TV world, I suck. I still got a round in the front. You don't have a name for those anymore. It's just
That's
ass.
what I got.
We got a
CRT.
VCR built into it.
Yeah.
And for the audio, there's like one plug. Like even when you're using the two, like there's the stereo plug. There's just one.
Do you have
Mono.
the wire hanger antenna still sticking out
Actually,
at the top there?
I did have that for a while until girlfriend wanted to get cable. I didn't have cable TV for 7 years.
We had to do that, and we had to turn the channel, the manual channel changer with a wrench.
Nice.
Because the thing fell off.
Right, but you had a really nice computer though.
That was
all
back
the
in
while.
1812.
I think the computer does more than play games argument is the most solid there. It's like, yeah, I'm using it for a lot more than just Half-Life 2. So.
You can play music on your PS3.
But you're not necessarily using all that power that you're paying for the quad core and for the 1,000-watt power supply and for 2 gigs of RAM and stuff to buy some shit off iTunes.
Right. I've never gotten that into PC gaming that I needed to buy all the expensive stuff. I just can't afford it. So I'm pretty modest every time I buy a computer anyway.
Mm-hmm. The thing is getting used to not just accepting that you're not going to have the optimum settings for every game that comes out. I played so many games on suboptimum settings, and you just get used to it. It doesn't matter if the
I'm
game's
not that
good.
anal about that kind of thing.
It doesn't matter,
Yeah, if I need to see something look really good, I just go into Darren's office.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so that's what that looks like. Cool.
I mean, a big concern for me is if it plays on my laptop.
Right.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We have Doc Martin abortion. The hell happened to the non-gaming podcast hinted at on a couple episodes ago?
I think you got it today for the first half. You talked a lot about Walmart for you there, buddy.
and whatever what a purple waterbed in an earthquake.
Yeah, that was a joke.
No, was it?
The non-gaming podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That was a joke.
It was.
Haven't we said that enough times now on the boards?
But there's still
Apparently
people that
not.
are posting.
We were
that are
kidding.
asking for the URL or where they can get it.
Okay. Well,
they're searching for it on iTunes.
This is kind of the non-gaming podcast as well as the pod. It's 2 podcasts in one, kids.
Yeah.
We don't have time for more than that a week. Okay.
Ryan,
Get
you
off
got
my
anything?
back.
I have one to take us out on if you got it.
Ryan, you still have a chance.
Chance for what?
Damn.
Such hostility.
No,
Read
no,
a question.
Huh?
Read a question.
He read all the good ones already. I got most of the same ones. Here's one from Colonel T. I don't know if we've talked about this on previous podcasts before or what, but he asks, how do people generally react when you tell them what you do for a living? I would imagine parents often tell you, oh, my son would be really good at your job. He loves those video games. Do you then want to smack the parent? I would want to smack the parent. Have you ever beat up someone for asking you what you do for a living? Have you ever just attacked someone on the street for no reason? Have you ever killed a boar with your bare hands, then consumed the raw flesh? Feel free to just answer the first question.
I think it's yes to all the above.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gentlemen, yeah?
Yeah.
Who do I tell? Usually if I know that they're gamers, I'll say what I do. But if not, I'll say I'm a magazine editor and just leave it at that.
The problem with that
Definitely,
is, right,
definitely.
well, sometimes I'll say that, yeah, I work in a magazine.
And they'll ask what magazine.
And then I have to say, well, it's a video game magazine. And then it goes from like, oh, really? To, oh,
Right.
you know.
The one that I get a lot is like, oh, so you test games?
That's the
Yeah,
that's the
you get
first
that all the
phase.
time.
It's
My
like,
girlfriend's parents still do that.
and
Yeah,
even among gamers, you know, like if it's happened to me before when it just comes up, you know, and I know that people are we're even talking about in the first place because they're talking about that they're playing some recent game that came out or something, and they only understand it as, oh, you test games. And then the next level from that is you review games, and that's like all, but as though that were all you do.
Do you ever get
Right.
that you make games too? Because I just got that yesterday. In fact, I was at a barbecue for my kid's school, so all the parents were there, and there's the same people at every single damn time I've seen them. So what do you do again? You know, so somebody said yesterday. So how's it going making those games? Like, okay, again,
That's not as
don't
bad
make them.
as you were at a barbecue.
Yeah.
Normally, in those circumstances, you'd think they would like nudge their kid and say, "Hey, this is Jeff, and he works with."
Well,
video
some of them
games."
do, and like I'm, some of the the 7th grade boys in there think I have the coolest job in the world.
Yeah,
You know,
Right.
And then I'm going like, wow, this is our audience.
my landlord did that to me. They have like a 4 or 5 year old, and they're like, "Hey, he works with video games."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they just
Dude,
don't
it's like
play, so
Tommy
they
Lee-
don't get it.
There's
cool
he
people who
plays
get it.
Ronald McDonald. He does birthdays as Ronald McDonald on weekends.
Yeah, pretty much. Are you
Yeah.
done tightening up those graphics yet, Jeff?
Yeah, I've had mixed reactions. The worst one I actually got was with the same group. My kid's at a school in Berkeley, a private school, and we were away on a camping trip with all these parents, so we're all hanging out. And so you got your Berkeley intellectual parents there, or pseudo intellectual parents, all talking, and we were all talking around the grill, the dads, and one of the dads is a pediatrician who specializes in obese kids. And at this point, this was early on, and when we joined the school, and they didn't know what I did for a living yet, and so when we were all just sitting around talking, I said what I did.
Oh, you're the candy man.
Yeah, and the guy went off on a thing. He's like, "Oh, so you're who I have to blame, who I have to thank for all of my clients, all the obese kids that come in." I'm like, yeah, hi. No, I don't think so. I think we maybe blame the parents. Okay, we don't blame the games. Again, do I have to have this conversation?
Wait,
up with
how
the-
do video games?
Because
make people
kids
fat.
are inside playing games and getting fat instead of outside exercise.
We could
But
solve
is it-
two problems by hooking up that doctor with the guy on our message board that was arguing that like all weight and body morphology is entirely as in 100% genetically determined.
Oh God!
Like those two arguing together, and then we'll just like slip out,
Uh-huh. So I don't know about you guys, but I've encountered some negativity along those lines. Or my wife used to she's a high school teacher, and she used to actually be more in academia. She was going for a PhD, and when we hung out with those people in particular, it was always a bad scene when it came up what I did. Then it was kind of like, oh, this is Ani's poor retarded husband. Games!
I got a very blue collar family, so it's kind of cool to most of them. Most of the time, though,
Yeah.
if you have like one story, here's what I would recommend. If you have like one story or one trip you did that you could latch onto, like I went to Britain to quote, talk to Angelina Jolie about the Tomb Raider movie.
Mm-hmm.
You're a star.
Bring that one up.
Famous.
Bring that one up, and then suddenly, like, that's all people will talk about. I mean, it was like, I think I met her for 4 seconds, but like, that's all you need because it'll totally get derailed into something else.
The ones that got my family over it were things like, I appeared on NPR once. They interviewed me about like gaming violence or whatever. And then my dad called up and he was like ecstatic. I heard you on NPR, Jeff. It's like, wow, you have like a real career. This is, I'd already been here for like 7 years. Like, Dad, I'm running a magazine here. Isn't that good enough for you, Pop? Don't you love me?
It's interesting. You like, I'm with you, Sean. Like, parents are so like blue collar that the notion doesn't even matter what I write about. Like, if I was like writing manuals or a tech writer or something, the fact that like someone in the family is like making money that doesn't involve like busting ass out doing something hard,
running a printing press or whatever.
Yeah. Like my dad, like his auto body, you know, and, he should have been retired a long time ago. He's still doing that stuff. But so it's like it's easy for me. And instead, like Jeff, you're in the position where you've got to like, if games come up, you've immediately got to like ease them into talking about like maybe civilization and various applications and ways that can lead to nonlinear thinking and you know and stuff like that. And
that has never come up at a family event.
Yeah, no, they think I'm slumming with like kiddie shit. Is the basic attitude I'm dealing with most of the time.
But at some point in that we've all encountered, you know, we've had that like basically use an out either way. Well, we didn't even have to really use an out. The only thing with like I'm assuming with your parents too, Sean, is just like keep them on the track that it's like it's about you're not making games. And you're not testing games, but you're writing about them.
They get it. They know what I'm doing, for sure. And they think it's cool. So
you do just kind of hope when someone asks and you say I'm a magazine editor that they don't follow it up, and in their head they're thinking like The Atlantic or
exactly.
Harper's.
National Geographic.
When I was in Ireland, we went to a wedding. This is going to make me sound so hoity-toity, but it was like it just the groom was his father's the Belgian ambassador, so it was at the embassy there. It's just really nice, and there's a big international group of people, of course, you know, from all over the continent. And I met another guy who's like, "Oh, I'm a managing editor of a magazine." I'm like, "Oh, cool. You know, what are you at?" And it's like Rolling Stone, and I'm like, "Oh, this is cool. We'll have an interesting conversation." It was like Rolling Stone, Italy, and so we're talking, and immediately like there was a hierarchy there observed when I had to be like, "Yeah, I like an enthusiast magazine for gaming," you know, so which immediately put me, and I was like, "This is going to be awkward," where I'm going to have to. You know, find ways to convince him that we have similar things, and they might be there. Like, and there were plenty. You know, like when just dealing with you know, people are upset about an interview or something, or your review wasn't positive enough, so we're not going to let you interview the star. But because of they're based on almost entirely non-endemic advertising, so it's not like all advertisements for Justin Timberlake and shit. So if Justin Timberlake's agents are like, you can't, and I'm making this up. This wasn't the artist who he mentioned or anything. They could be like, well, fuck you. You know, we'll just go to Rolling Stone UK, Rolling Stone France, have them translate the same interview you already gave to them. Or otherwise, what are you going to do? You're just going to shut yourself out from coverage in like 16 different international markets, you know? But anyway, long story short, what was funny is by the time halfway through the conversation, I asked what their subscriber base was. And I was like, score when ours like outnumbered Rolling Stone Italy by like 4 or 5 times. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. So that immediately like lifted. Like I know exactly, but it immediately like the difference between the cash of the name Rolling Stone and GFW, like it immediately like just the raw numbers like put me back into.
We need to construct a magazine hierarchy.
Yeah, we need to start hanging out with magazine editors of smaller nations. Yeah, we're bigger than you, fucker, in Monaco.
Luxembourg Rolling Stone.
I could tell one similar story, which is just that I had this friend from high school who I actually don't talk to him anymore, but I know he works at Variety magazine, you know, which is an industry Hollywood industry mag, and he runs into my mom down in LA every once in a while because they live in the same neighborhood, and he. You know, my name hasn't come up in whatever decades with this guy or whatever. And he asked, you know, when he ran into my mom, what I did for a living. And she told him, and she told me his reply was like, kind of this like, oh, the enthusiast press. Well, that's a pretty good place to be these days in publishing, which was sort of like a kind of condescending.
It was a damning with faint praise.
Right? Oh, well, that's cute.
Yeah.
All we want is a little respect, man. Not really.
whatever.
I need
Just
no
kidding.
respect. I get paid to talk about
I know.
how shitty the seasonal aisle is at a drugstore.
We have
That's all you need.
we have great
Right
jobs
there.
here. If you don't understand it, then
Yeah.
fuck you.
Don't get no respect. Don't need it.
Last quick chance we can answer with just a few names, but Wabe Walker wants to know what books we're reading.
Oh,
And the reason I bring that up is because before, when in the course of an interview with various writers in the industry that handle the writing for games, a lot of them were mentioning that they were into Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which that's been out. And so we talked about that, and I read it, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, that's great," and they PM'd me back saying, "Hey, thanks for that recommendation." So, what you guys reading?
I am currently reading The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin.
Okay,
Classic science fiction.
put the classic on there before you drop down that geek hierarchy.
Yep. Classic.
Not based on the television show.
No.
I've got 3 books going at once, which is kind of how I do things. I often
That's
have
how I do.
a nonfiction and fiction going at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So I'm finishing up a pretty great biography of Louis Armstrong. I read a lot of music books, and so this is a pretty great biography that goes into a lot of the history of New Orleans and early jazz, which is an interest of mine. So that's my nonfiction. And fiction, I am doing what a lot of people are doing these days, and I'm going back through my Vonnegut library now that Kurt Vonnegut passed away. So I'm reading Cat's Cradle. And then third, I'm reading a really marvelous book by marvelous. It's just marvelous. I don't know why did I use that word?
It's a classic book.
I know this guy who every time he was talking about something, he always used the word phenomenal. So we would always say that about him behind his back. That sandwich today was just phenomenal. Anyway, this Salman Rushdie